In this video, I'm going to talk about resilience and how to bounce back strongly when life hits you with a storm, and 5 science-informed ways to enhance your resilience when you're going through life storms. So one of my hardest moments in my life so far was when I was going through a breakup. And at the start, I got a lot of social support and people were around me, and I was kind of distracting myself from most of the pain by working a little bit and spending time with other people. And then like 3 weeks later, I had moved to my parents. They went to the summer house and I was just with myself and my thoughts. It was around 8, I just finished eating. It was a Saturday night and I had nothing scheduled for the night. And I was looking at the TV or about to start the TV when I just feel this intense pain. Like somebody had stabbed me with a knife in my stomach. So it was a physical pain, but also emotional pain, experiencing a lot of mixture of anger, shame, experiencing depression, despair, confusion, and then I had some really dark thoughts. For the first time in my life, I understood that people use distractions to numb themselves away from their pain. I wanted to do all of that, so a thought came into my mind like, there's beer in the fridge. Should I just drink a couple of beers and then go to sleep to get away from myself? Should I just work more to distract myself? Should I call somebody to hook up with them? Should I do anything else that, would alleviate this pain in this present moment and not letting me face it? And at that moment, I wanted to do all of it, but I didn't. I remember that I decided to accept the pain, accept the thoughts I was having, accept the pain I was having physically and the emotional pain as well, and just sit with it, do nothing, just allowing it to go through me. And that's one of the best decisions I've ever made during hard times. And I will get more into that later. What I was thinking at a certain point in my career is that what distinguishes people when life throws curveball at them and when life throws challenges at people, what distinguishes people that go through them and turn them into something that makes them stronger, and the people who face hardships and it's nearly just game over for themselves in their life and their story just goes downward. And I think, of course, it's like nuanced and there's a lot of things in terms of the context, in terms of the person, what distinguishes those people. But one aspect is resilience. And resilience is not just an individual ability to bounce back strongly. So resilience is to be able to navigate adversity by relying on physical, psychological, and social resources. So I think it's more than an individual phenomena, which brings me, so I'm going to talk about 5 science-informed things that can improve your resilience during your hardest time. And it's social support, emotional courage, positive emotions, positive meaning-making, and vision and goals. And if you start with the first one, which is social support, and that relates to the fact that resilience isn't just about you and you toughing it out. It isn't like just you against the world, and because resilience is way bigger than that. And one of the most important things in resilience is social support. Being able to lean on your friends, your family members, and people in the community is extremely important for you, because these people can give you emotional support, financial support, psychological support, physical support maybe in terms of touch and all of that. And so during my hardest time, I've always leaned on the people in my life. And it's not a weakness to ask for help or lean on your people, but there's 2 things that goes into that. Firstly, you want to build those social relationships before shit hits the fan. You want to nurture your family, you want to nurture your friends, you want to nurture your community from the standpoint of they make life meaningful. But when shit hits the fan, those people will be a huge resource in helping you to bounce back quickly. So I'll take an example. I wanted to give up when I was in the States, like 1 year in. It just felt, I was just so confused, and I was still clinging into my past identity. And it was really hard to go from this public figure in Iceland to be a nobody in LA. And I remember when I was calling my friend and I broke down, and he was really to listen to me, so show me empathy and compassion, and then give me a perspective that completely saved me and is the reason why I'm here today. And because I had nurtured that connection with that friend, he was there for me during tough times. So if you don't have a lot of friends or family, you can also rely on people in your community. Also, when I was adjusting to America, I didn't have a lot of friends. But what helped me to stay resilient was going to the same coffee shop at 5 a.m. in the morning, Coffee Tea Bean Leaf in Claremont, where I used to live, and just have a 5 to 10 minute conversation with the baristas. Only that, just that connection helped me to stay resilient and experience a brief moment of positive interactions with people. So if you don't have friends or family members, I would definitely go into the community and interact with people because they give you positive emotions, and positive emotions are really important in your resilience, and I'll go into that further. But you're just going to be way more equipped of being resilient and being able to turn the adversity in something powerful if you have people around you that can support you. So lean on those. And if they can't give you the support you need, I would highly recommend that you talk to a coach or a therapist or a clinical psychologist that can just listen to you and help you to navigate through all of this, because social support is really important. The next one is emotional courage. So remember when I wanted to do everything except for feeling my emotions and accepting my thoughts. The reason I say emotional courage is because you need courage to face your emotions, what you're feeling in your body, emotionally and also mentally. And what happens when you don't feel and when you postpone it or you don't allow yourself to feel those emotions, which requires enormous amount of courage, and that's why I think it's a strength but not a weakness, is that if you bury them down, they will end up controlling your life and have the control over you, unconsciously or consciously. And one day they will come up to the surface. But it's really good to be able, when you're going through difficult moments, to allow yourself to face your emotions and feel them. You don't have to understand them. You don't have to realize exactly what you're going through. Just sitting with them and just feeling them, although it's super, super painful. And what I like to remind myself of feeling my emotions and accepting my thoughts, etc., is that this too shall pass, which means that like every bad moment and every good in your life is eventually going to pass. And I always remind myself of that when I'm experiencing difficult moments in my life. I know they won't last forever, and this applies for all areas of life, not only emotional pain, but also when I'm doing a really hard marathon. I know that the pain I'm going to feel for the last 30 minutes in the race is going to be extremely difficult, but at the same time I remind me like this pain will not last forever. And that makes me really resilient. So it's good to have some mantra in the storm as well, but the foundational part is that if you don't face and fear your emotions, they will face you when you don't know about it in the future, and you won't recover as fast. The quickest ways to recover and stay resilient is to accept whatever emotions you are feeling, so that makes you stronger, not weaker. Third one is infusing positive emotions. So during 9/11, I think there was a research that Barbara Fredrickson did on positive emotions, and the more people co-experienced positive emotions during and in the aftermath of 9/11, they were more resilient. And it might sound strange to talk about positive emotions and hard times, but they can coexist. I was just reminding myself of one thing now that I haven't even told my mom, but it was really admirable of her, that we had a huge loss in our family a couple of years ago, and we were going through some tough times together, but then 1 or 2 hours in, my mom tells a joke and starts to laugh. And she was not doing that in terms of like minimizing what already had happened, but she was using her light as a light for others in that situation. Humor is a super powerful tool when you're going through difficulties. Like during my breakup, like the 2 days after, I was joking with my friends and I said like, I'm building the revenge body. And that was just something that I found funny and wanted to communicate with my friends, that Operation Revenge Body has just begun. So always when I went to training, I was always sending to them Revenge Body, and it made me connect to them more as well. And also like laughing about yourself. Like I was going through a breakup and I lost a family member. I was in the gym, I was doing this chest exercise, and I remember that emotions hit me and I started crying. And I went to the restroom to flesh that out a little bit, and then of course I finished the training because my mom and dad did not raise no quitter. But the reason I'm saying this now to you is that now I can look back on it, and I looked back on it like in the evening or the day after, and I told people about it and made a joke about it, because of course it's funny that I think it's really funny that I was crying and doing some chest exercises at the same time in the gym, and I can make fun out of myself in that situation. That's really important. And then I think two other things, like the next thing is that healthy ways to get out of your own head, if that makes sense, and forgetting you in something else. So that could be like through a brief conversation with a friend, that could be through moving your body, that could be through connection with nature, seeing something, like experience this sense of awe about animals or the sunset or the beach or the mountains, because that takes the attention away from you and how much you are suffering and into your perspective field that is around you, and then you forget yourself for a while, and that's really good to be able to do that. Like during your hardest time, maybe 30 seconds or 1 minute or 10 minutes or an hour, and that's really helpful for you. And in that vein, there's a concept called savoring in positive psychology, which means that we normally rush through things such as drinking a sparkling water, having a coffee, taking a shower in the morning, but if we attend to that present moment with all of our senses, so when I'm drinking this sparkling water now, instead of doing like a usual, just take one sip, I'm perceiving the can, I'm just looking at the color, and I'm maybe smelling it, I'm tasting how it tastes, and I'm really mindful when I'm drinking it. And savoring can bring us in the present moment more, which means that we forget ourselves in something else, and helps us to get a little bit break from ourselves and during our hardest moments. And so the more, and maybe doing something that you enjoy during your hardship, like what do you enjoy? Because if you experience those positive emotions, that's going to make you more resilient, and it's okay to experience positive emotions during your hardest time. It's okay, and it's necessary to some. The fourth one is positive meaning making. And so sometimes, because we're meaning-making creatures, we always have to understand our world around us, our experiences and ourselves at the same time, and when we don't have a lot of predictability or coherence or comprehension about ourselves and our experiences. And for most people that is really difficult. So we tend to make meaning out of things. But the reality is that the meaning can be created in a constructive way, in a positive way, and in a destructive way. And we have so much power here to create the meaning that can help us move forward versus the meaning that we create that keeps us stuck or just in the past. So when I was going through, let's take the breakup example, and many of my friends are clinical psychologists, and one of my best friends called me and met me for a walk the night that we broke up, and we walked for 1 hour, and he listened extremely well for the whole time, and then he just asked me one question, like, Peggy, it showed me really good empathy and compassion, and he asked me like, and I was talking about I was so shameful of going through this experience because I felt like this was something I wanted to be successful at, and I wasn't, and he said to me like, Peggy, like, what do you think needs to happen with that shame? It made me rethink, because the meaning I put in that thing was that I was a loser because I wasn't successful in the thing I thought that society would look at as a successful attribute, which it does. And I thought to myself, well, many people break up and are not together. Like, almost like so many people in the world have met a person and broken up with them. So if majority of people go through that, is that then not a success? And why am I saying that I can't be success in the future in this? So it gave me like a little bit of hope in terms of finding the partner in the future. And then the story went from I'm not being shameful, I'm being human. And I thought like how much this would make me more mature in the future in helping people, like for example, I hope I'm doing now and in my practice, coaching practice. So the meaning that I changed in that moment, I was from a loser to being like a learner, and how much this would help me to grow. So what I'm saying here is that terrible things happen in your life. There are facts there that happen. But the most powerful thing that you have is that you are the author of your own story. So you get to create the narrative. And you want to create a narrative that is a redemption narrative, not a loser narrative. And that's the only way to move forward, because if you create a loser narrative, it's just gonna be straight down to hell from there. If you create redemption narrative and a hero narrative, something positive, then you'll be able to write a story that will influence a lot of people and be an empowerment towards your story, and you're the hero of your story. So you get to create how you want to make meaning out of the things that happen. Viktor Frankl said, wrote the Man's Search for Meaning, he said that between a stimulus, so something happens, and a response, is your freedom to choose how you want to respond. And he was in the prisoner camps in Auschwitz, and he realized that during incredible difficult times that he was experiencing, that he chose how he want to respond to it. And I think it's the same with how we choose to make meaning out of difficult things that happens in our life. And you want to make a meaning that helps you to become a better human being and a stronger human being in the future, and you want to create as less of a meaning that keeps you stuck or keeps you going to a downward spiral. So I would ask us, one way to do this is to talk to somebody, a psychologist or coach or a friend, and gain meaning through like understanding. What I did with my friends that I met just after my breakup, I started to talk about everything with them. So I didn't use them, but they listened very well, and I was able to understand myself even more and more and more when I was talking. And the only way to understand ourselves is to talk or by writing. But here are some questions that might help you in that process. And the first one is like, what am I learning from this experience? The second one is there anything positive that I've seen as a result of going through this experience? Have my relationships changed, as in towards my family, friends, co-workers, my community? Have I gotten different perspectives on the world now? Do I have different life priorities? Has my worldview changed for the better? Am I deeper spiritually than I was? So you ask yourself, what strengths do I have that I didn't realize that I had, but I realized that during going through this process. So you answer in a manner, and this helps you to create positive meaning out of the difficulties that you're experiencing, which is going to help you in the future. The last one I want to talk about is having vision and goals. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who has a why can bear any almost how." And why is the purpose, and that's often related to your vision and goals, or the reason for your vision and goals. So if I take the example with Viktor Frankl again, his purpose was he still thought his family was alive, and he was writing this manuscript of logotherapy based on his experience in the presentation in the camps about logotherapy, and he wanted to use that to improve the world after he would get out of the concentration camps. And that kept him alive, that made him resilient, because he had something to live for. He had his family to live for, he had his impact and his book to live for. And that is what happened when you have a clear vision and goals for your life. And ideally you would have vision and goals before the storm hits. Now sometimes the storm hits you in a way that it takes you away from certain goals. But if you still have goals and vision in your life, it can serve as a protective element of bending you but not breaking you. So you want to have somewhat of a vision of who you want to be in 3 years, what kind of friends you want to have, what kind of partner you want to have, what do you want to do for your career, what to do in your free time. And you should have goals related to that in terms of like something related to your physical health or mental health or friendships or career. And you want to construct that before, but also you can start to create a new vision for your life and new goals to stay more resilient. Because if you have a vision for your life or you have a goals in your life, when you have hope, and when you have hope, that's the last thing you want to miss when you're going through tough times, because when you have hope, you have resilience. And hope is nothing else than having goals and having pathways to achieve those goals and the agency to put in the work that is needed to accomplish these goals. So these doesn't have to be complex goals, but also creating new goals and they can be either specific, like I'm going to make $100,000 in the next year by December, or they can be vague, I want to gain economic security. What's important in goal setting, when you have outlined the vision and then the goals, is also having sub-goals. Okay, to be able to get 100K a year, I need to devote 2 hours for an important skill that people are willing to buy for, because that creates value. It could be I need to spend 1 hour per day on market research. It could be I need to spend 1 hour per day per content creation, or have a job by this time, etc. So you outline the systems and the steps, and then you focus on those. But you can never lose the vision or goals in who you can become in the midst of suffering, because it'll be a protective factor before the storm hits, but also a supporting factor to get out of the adversity that you're experiencing. Yeah, these are all science-informed, backed by science, and I've leaned on them, these ones, during my transitions and my resilience, to build my resilience. And yeah, I hope that this gave you some information of being more resilient. And life is so hard, always hits you with a curveball when you least expect it. But I know that you can overcome whatever you're going through. And while you don't see it now, you might look at your adversity now as the biggest blessing that has happened in your life. And I'm hoping that one day you will see it, because you don't often see it or understand it when you are in the moment. But my most hard times in your lives have all turned into a blessing and all empowered me to embody a greater story that has had multiple effects on the people around me and the community and the world around me. So there's nothing to you if you haven't gone through any darkness and any difficulties. If you just succeeded in everything that you do your whole life, and I wouldn't watch that movie. I think you wouldn't watch that movie either. So like, these hardship makes you who you are, and you have the agency and responsibility to turn that into something that will be a light in the world for yourself and the people around you. So yeah, I know you can get through this, and I hope you get through this. And please reach out if there's anything, but keep crushing it, and I'll see you soon.